Hello, and welcome back to the Take a Break podcast, exclusively here on YouTube. I am your host, KC, and this is the relaxing and informative podcast where we take a break from the hectic pace of life to discuss various topics from mundane subjects to thought-provoking ideas. Welcome to episode 14, and today I am talking about my minimalist podcast setup. We'll be talking about how I record my podcast and why I do the things I do. And podcast format is simple. We have the intro, topic of the day, and then community chat. Become part of the community chat. Send me your responses, questions, comments, requests, etc. via email only at takeabreakpodcast@gmail.com. Well, hello everybody. I hope everyone is having a great day, a great week. This is being recorded on Saturday, February 25th, 2017 at 9:03 a.m. And as you know, this will probably be posted on Sunday, February 26th. But hello, how's everyone doing? It's been a great week actually in terms of the channel. Actually, first let me just say hello and welcome to my new subscribers. I actually had a flurry of activity in terms of the channel this week. We might as well get into that. I think this is going to be a longer intro, just like last episode. I quite enjoyed that. And actually, having said that, if you look at the description of this video, I'm going to add podcast timing. I think that's going to be pretty useful, especially if I'm going to have a longer intro. Some people might find my podcast just because they want to hear the topic of the day. They might not want to hear sort of, kind of my miscellaneous ramblings at the beginning. So if I add podcast timing, they can go straight to the topic of the day, or they can go straight to the community chat because we have one this week. So it's great, but let me kind of backtrack and talk about some channel news. So this has been a very exciting week for the Take a Break podcast, for my channel. I feel like there's been a flurry of activity, which is great. I'm actually really, really excited. So thank you to people who have been viewing the podcast, and thank you to my subscribers. So I actually have 4 subscribers now, which is amazing. Now, yes, I know, 4 subscribers. People are thinking, what's the big deal? 4 subscribers. I have 400 or 4,000 or 400,000. Well, to me, it's a big deal. The fact that, 3 people want to follow my podcast. Sorry, 4 people want to follow my podcast is amazing. The reason I said 3, I meant 3 new people. So basically, in terms of subscribers, I've been doing this for about 6 months, and I've had 1 subscriber so far, but that 1 subscriber really was good enough. My first subscriber, it's an individual that I actually know that is very dear to my heart, and she will always be my first and one and only subscriber. So you can probably guess who that first subscriber is, but she knows who she is. And so for 6 months, I've had 1 subscriber. And so imagine that for 6 months, 13 episodes, 1 subscriber. And then all of a sudden, in 1 week, since posting episode 13, I've had 3 new subscribers. I was floored, actually. I remember I looked, I was like, wow, I have 2 subscribers. And then I checked again. I have 3 subscribers. And then I checked again. Now I have 4 subscribers. And that might not sound like a big deal, to you, but to me, imagine doing something for 6 months, and you have one subscriber, and then all of a sudden in a week you have three more. I'm not used to that. So I was very excited. So I don't know who those three new individuals are, but to my new subscribers, from KC to you, I just want to say welcome. I hope you are getting some value out of these podcasts, because I know I am. As you know from my previous episodes, I also need to take a break. So welcome. I hope you stick around. I hope we can take a break for many more episodes to come. And also too, I've had some comments on my videos. I haven't had a comment in a while. So yeah, I want to give a shout out to SCWT89. So thank you so much for your comment. He's a fellow VORW fan, yeah. But I'm actually going to talk a little bit more about the channel and the community chat. So I'll kind of hold my thoughts there. But we have a community chat again. We got some comments, we got some flurry of activities. And I've also noticed that my videos have been getting likes. Now I don't know if those likes have always been there and I just didn't notice, but I kind of opened up my YouTube video manager. You can kind of see all your videos, and I noticed a lot of my videos have a few likes, and I'm like, whoa, I didn't even notice that. So this is great. In terms of the channel, this has been a pretty incredible week for me. New subscribers, new comments, new likes. At least I think they're new likes. So yeah, it's been great. It's been great. So yeah, so hello to my new subscribers. Thank you, SCWT89, for joining us and commenting. You will be included in the community chat. And again, I have podcast timing. So if anyone wants to go straight to the community chat, please look at the description. There's a little timestamp there, and you can just kind of look at that and, jump accordingly to that point in the podcast. So yeah, so that's just a little channel news. We'll talk a little bit more about subscribers in the community chat. Hopefully I remember to mention that. But yeah, no, we got a good episode today. At least I hope. Episode 14. We'll be talking about my podcast setup. I actually mentioned my podcast setup a little bit kind of throughout previous episodes, especially when I'm talking about my microphone, how I record my podcast. But I kind of wanted to go into detail about why I've chosen such a minimalist approach. So kind of implementing minimalism even in my podcast. So we're going to talk all about that. So if that interests you, again, check out the podcast timing and just go straight to the topic of the day. So, but I, just want to kind of relax a bit, take a break. I really liked my long intro in episode 13, and I thought, you know what? I like that actually. Kind of a slow burn, just kind of warm up a bit, before we get to the topic of the day. And I don't know, the intro is nice. It's kind of like catching up with an old friend. How was your week? Kind of have these little mini topics in the intro. So I like that. I like that a lot. So that was great. So in the intro, I just have a few things I just kind of want to mention, kind of thinking about the week. And for those of you that are new, so my new subscribers and maybe any new listeners, the intro is kind of just exactly what it sounds like. Just a little introduction, just describing the podcast and chance for me to kind of say hello and ask how you're doing and tell you how I'm doing, basically. Kind of like if you were to meet someone for a business meeting, a business lunch, you don't go straight into talking business. You may kind of sit down, shake hands, have a little bite to eat, talk about the family, the weather, how's life, and then you get to whatever you're supposed to get to. Then you get down to business. That's kind of the setup of this podcast. Kind of let's have a little intro, kind of talk a bit, kind of loosen up, and then we go into the topic of the day. Plus, it helps me as well too. It's kind of tough to kind of record a podcast because you're basically just talking to yourself, really, or well, talking to you all, but you're also just talking. It's not like a back and forth interview. So I like longer intros now. Kind of gets me in the groove of podcasting, as sort of say. So, but yeah, I have a few notes here, which is good. Again, this podcast isn't scripted. If it is, it probably be pages and pages long. But I did write a few show notes here, which is nice. So just kind of looking at it here. This week was an interesting week, pretty busy in terms of the social end. I literally had like a dinner outing with either family or friends pretty much every other day. So I'm going out to dinner a lot. And yesterday I went out for dinner. And the first two were great as well. I think I went out, I think it was Monday, went out for dinner. Wednesday went out for dinner. And yesterday, which was Friday, went out for dinner as well. So if I sound a little tired this morning, I am. We didn't stay too late, but it definitely was one of those. Me and my wife came home like, after 12 a.m. sometime, and I woke up at 6:30 a.m. So I've been awake for almost 3 hours now. You're probably thinking, you wake up at 6:30 a.m. on a Saturday when you don't have to? Well, yeah, I do. And if you listen to my, I did an episode about sleeping in versus waking up early. My stance on that, so I won't go into that again. But you can check out that episode and see why I like to wake up early, even on my days off. But yeah, so if I sound a little tired, it's because I've been up. Now, it's kind of funny. So just to kind of backtrack. So yesterday, my wife and I went on a birthday dinner with one of my wife's good friends. And it was nice. We let her pick the restaurant because, she's the birthday girl. And we went somewhere downtown in the city in where I live. I'm from Canada. I won't mention the city just to kind of keep it in suspense. But I'm just going to, I'll let you guys know where I live. But for now, it doesn't really matter. But it's downtown. Let's just say that. We call it downtown. So, we went downtown. We took a subway there. Bit of a short walk. And we went to the restaurant. And it was cool. She picked kind of like, she likes live music. She likes jazz. So it was like kind of this little tiny jazz bar lounge. Very good food. And it was a nice place. It wasn't some sort of cheap diner. It was good food. So yeah, we sat at the bar. We were right beside the band, which was great. But again, it's jazz. It wasn't really a loud band. They had a drummer, a bass player, a guitar, and it's kind of nice, mellow background music. And it was great. We were there. We were there for a good 3.5, maybe 4 hours. So yeah, it was nice. We had, I enjoy drinking, but I don't like drinking to excess. I just had a pint of Stella, which is beer, and it was good. My wife and the birthday celebrant, they ordered a pasta dish. I wasn't too hungry because I actually had a big lunch, but which I probably shouldn't have. But I wasn't too hungry, so they ordered mains. I didn't, but I ordered enough appetizers for us three to share that I knew I can kind of get my fill. So that was good. That was actually pretty neat. I haven't been to kind of that kind of setup, and it was nice. And yeah, and the food was great. Again, I had a nice pint of beer, good company, and we had the appetizers we had this like jumbo coconut shrimp, which was awesome. It was like these plump, juicy shrimps, like jumbo shrimps, and they were like soaking in this coconut sauce with like shredded coconut on top. So you got kind of that texture from the coconut, and then the shrimp was very sweet, very succulent. tasted great. The other appetizer was kind of the smoked salmon on a bed of like spinach with olives and onions, and oh, it was great. And I don't know what they did. Like I've had smoked salmon a lot, but I don't know if they dipped it in butter. But I remember when we tried it, we all said, "Whoa, there's a butteriness to this smoked salmon." It was really good. So yeah, so if you can imagine my Friday night, just imagine me, imagine good old KC, just at a bar, listening to some live jazz music, having a pint of beer, and eating shrimps and smoked salmon, and just having a great time. Good conversation. So it was good. It was actually a great night, and it was so great that me and my wife want to try to find some more of these kind of bars with live music, and kind of have a drink or two and have some appetizers and kind of do that same thing. So it's kind of nice sometimes when you let somebody else pick the restaurant, because you get exposed to kind of new things, and yeah, it's always good. So I guess to go off on a little tangent on that story, if you ever want to try something new, let somebody else pick the restaurant. Because if they ask you, oh, well, where do you want to go? You're probably just going to suggest places you've already been, obviously. But if you ask them, they might suggest something completely different. Again, I love music. I play instruments. But, I'm not a big jazz connoisseur. I don't really go to live music much, although I enjoy it and I love it. And so, yeah, it was great. And the band was great, too. It's pretty cool. I play bass. I play lots of other instruments as well, but I play bass, and it was just really great to see a bass player kind of playing some jazz music, and it was cool. What I also liked is they all kind of had their little solos. I don't know if it was improvised, but there'll be a time where kind of the drums would kind of go off and do their own riff, and then the guitar would do their own thing, and then there'll be a time where the bass for a good 30 seconds, 1 minute will just kind of do some cool riffs. And it's awesome because you don't really hear a lot of bass solos, so it's great. And for those of you that don't know what the bass guitar is, that it's a 4-string guitar, and it's the one that gives you kind of that really low end sound. So whenever you hear a song, you might not hear it with your ears in the sense that you can kind of pick out the bass, although I can because I play bass. But for the casual listener, you might not be able to hear a song and pick out, oh, that's the bass. But it's kind of that low supporting sound, almost that heartbeat of the song. You really feel it in your chest, and you kind of feel it in your soul. It's that kind of like that kind of sound whenever you hear any song. So it's nice, but it's usually, part of the rhythm section. It kind of supports the song. It's kind of the basis of the song, pun intended, the base of the song, but it's nice to see an actual bass player doing the solo. So yeah, overall, that was a great, yesterday was great. Again, tiring. Came home after midnight, and we don't usually do that too much, I'm old, I know. I think I revealed it on a couple of other episodes that I'm in my early 30s, and it's kind of funny because, when you're in your early 20s, you go out pretty late, and I'm not a partier by any means. I never have been. I'm pretty introverted, as I mentioned, but I do remember in my early 20s, there was times where it's like 11:30 p.m. and I'm just getting ready to go out. You know what I mean? And then fast forward 10 years, and here I am. It's 11:30, and I can barely stay awake. So yeah, safe to say that once me and my wife got home last night, which I guess is technically today, Saturday morning, but when we got home last night, I just went to bed and had about 6 hours of sleep, and now I'm here. Now I'm here recording this podcast. So yeah, it's been a great week for me. It's been the week of dinners, lots of dinners, and family and friends, which is great. So yeah, so that was good too. And in terms of work, to any new listeners, as my other listeners know, I have a I have a typical office job, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 type of thing. I won't really go into that. And, work can be pretty tough. I definitely don't necessarily enjoy what I'm doing, but there is hope. There is hope. So, again, I won't go into details about the nature of my work or what I do, but I've been training someone to do some of my duties at work. So that's definitely helping. But it's kind of funny. This week I learned a lot about myself in terms of confidence, actually. You're probably wondering, confidence. I and you can use this example and apply it to work, but you can apply it to life in general. But I did not have much confidence in myself, in my work abilities when it comes to work. Not so much in myself. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at, and I'm confident in myself as a human being. But I was never confident about my work. I didn't feel that I really knew what I was doing or that I was that good at my job. Although, people would tell me I'm great and no, I'm doing fine, but I don't know. I just never, always felt like I was someone pretending to do my job. But training someone to kind of do some of your duties and kind of seeing them not so much struggle, but kind of seeing them kind of take it all in and seeing them kind of learn it, and they're doing it at a slower pace. They may be confused a little, ask a lot of questions, which is natural. They're learning something new. It just makes you realize how much you actually know. And I remember training this new person on duties that I just took for granted, that I didn't even think I was doing well. But to train that other person and I realized, wow, this person is thinks, this is a lot of information and it's not that easy. And I realized, you know what? It is a lot of information and it isn't that easy. You know what? I'm actually doing this job pretty well. This isn't, it's not rocket science, as the quote says, but it's not a walk in the park either. And my confidence actually went up. I will admit, training this individual, I realized, you know what, Casey? And you can tell I talk to myself a lot. I realized, you know what, Casey? You actually know your stuff. You've been selling yourself short. You know what you're doing, which is great. So that's a little lesson, I guess, in confidence. A little lesson in confidence in that you might not think that you're good at something that you're currently doing, and that may be the case, or it may be the case that you're selling yourself short, just like me. And kind of a good tester is try to explain that to someone. Try to explain what you're doing to someone and see what they think, and you might realize, hey, I actually know my stuff. I'm just trying to give an example, not an example of what I do, but let's just say, I don't know, let's just say you work in fast food, and I'm not insulting anyone who works in fast food. Many moons ago, I guess you can say, my first job when I was about 14 actually was at a Wendy's, believe it or not. So I worked at fast food. I know what it's like. I know what the pay is like. I know what the duties are like. But anyways, imagine if, say you're working in fast food and say you're a cashier, and you always think, oh man, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm terrible at my job, and everyone's kind of telling you, no, hey, you're doing well. You're doing well. Relax. You're doing great. You're like, I don't know this job. But I don't know too much. And then you go to train someone, and you're teaching them, and they're saying, wow, you're really fast on the cash machine. And you're like, oh, okay, sure, I guess I am. And then you're trying to explain to them how the cash register works, and they're like, okay, yeah, it's a little complicated, but you're kind of just doing it naturally. And they're like, wow, that's pretty good. You've memorized all the menu items, and you're thinking, oh yeah, I guess I have. And then as you're training this new person, customers are coming up and they're asking questions about the menu. Say it's fast food, like, oh, what's a combo number six? And you say, without even looking at the menu, well, combo number six is a burger, fries, and a shake. And the new employee that you're training says, oh my goodness, you memorized that. It's like, well, yeah, I guess. And kind of training that new employee and seeing them kind of struggle or be overwhelmed with the material, then you start to realize, wow, you know what? Maybe I am great at being a cashier at this fast food restaurant. I was selling myself short. I thought I wasn't doing a good job, but I actually know a lot. I'm a superstar. Well, maybe not a superstar, but hey, I actually know my stuff. I am a cashier at this fast food place. I know what I'm doing. I'm not useless, or I'm not just a screw up. So which is great. So definitely, it was a good week, a good confidence boost when it comes to work. So yeah, if you ever think that you are not confident, sorry, if you ever think you're not competent and you lack confidence, try explaining to someone what you do or training someone in your duties, and I think you'll realize, what you're doing is simple to you, but it's pretty complicated to someone else. So yeah, little life lesson there. So, but yeah, that was my week. It was a week of lots of channel activity. It was a week of dinners and outings, and it was a week of confidence, gaining confidence at work. So, but yeah, that was my week. That was my week, folks. So thanks for listening. No, I'm just kidding. I was acting as if I was ending the podcast there, but yeah. So you know what? Let's go ahead and formally end the intro, and let us begin the topic of the day for this episode. So again, welcome. This is the Take a Break podcast, episode 14. I'm your host, KC, and hopefully we have a very relaxing and informative topic of the day for you. So today we are talking about my minimalist podcast setup. So how to record a podcast, the Take a Break style. So yeah, we're going to be talking about minimalism and podcasting and my podcast setup. So I kind of have a bit of a flow here, a bit of a kind of a strategy for this topic of the day. I kind of want to talk about I want to talk about why I chose my podcast setup. So I want to talk about kind of why I'm doing. Sorry, let me backtrack. Let me look at my notes here again. You're probably thinking, wow, you're so prepared, sarcastically. I'm just kidding. Hey, this is a relaxing show, right? I want to talk about kind of, before I started this podcast, how I wanted to record it, the reasons for that, and then I'm actually going to explain the nuts and bolts of my podcast setup. So the first part is going to be a little more abstract, kind of talking about concepts of minimalism, and kind of relating that to my podcast setup. And then towards the end, we're actually just going to get into the nuts and bolts of how I actually record a podcast. So if you're more interested in one or the other, that's kind of the setup, I guess, pun intended, of this topic of the day. Is the first part will be kind of more abstract discussion, and then the actual nitty-gritty nuts and bolts of how I actually record my podcast will be kind of later in the topic of the day. So, and then after this, we'll have our community chat, and that'll be our episode. So, so podcast setup. Well, here's the thing, as I think I'm pretty sure I did. When you do a lot of episodes, it's kind of a blur what you've said sometimes, but I'm pretty sure I mentioned why I wanted to do this podcast, and I think I mentioned that doing a podcast has actually been on my bucket list, in the sense that I really started getting into podcasts and talk radio maybe about 5 years ago. And I've always wanted to do it too, I've always wanted to have my own show and create something, and get that creativity um, put to good use. And years ago, I was thinking of what kind of podcast I should make. Should I make a podcast about life, a podcast about I don't know, intense topics, or a podcast about I don't know, various interests of mine. And topic aside, I always wanted the setup to be very professional. I always remembered that if and when I did start a podcast, I wanted to, invest in a music editing program. I wanted to, create an intro, a musical intro. I wanted to create different segments, different musical interludes, maybe, or a kind of musical stings or transitions. I wanted a nice, polished, heavily edited podcast, which would have taken hours and lots of work, but that's the way I am. And I was even thinking of doing, like, if I was going to post it on YouTube, to have maybe some nice animations, maybe some different photos or videos playing in the background while I discuss a topic. So, for example, if I'm talking about say birthday dinners, I would maybe show a picture of a birthday dinner. So to kind of have visuals to match the audio, kind of have this full, very polished looking podcast. And looking podcast, that's what a weird description, because it's audio. A very polished listening experience, very professional, lots of editing, and just I wanted it to sound like other podcasts and radio shows that you hear. Well, as you know, the podcast right now is the total opposite of that. See, what happened was a couple of years ago, I guess just about last year, I discovered a couple of things. So two things that kind of shaped my perspective. One was minimalism. I've talked about minimalism before. I won't go into too much detail here, but for those of you that don't know, as the name implies, minimalism it's basically the idea that less is more, or paring down things to its essential. So basically, if you take the concept to, say, clothes, for example, say you have, 50 articles of clothing, but you only wear, say, really 6 or 7 out of those 50 pieces of clothing, then if you were to apply the philosophy of minimalism, you would just get rid of everything and just keep those 6 or 7. It's basically paring things down to their bare essentials, to only the things that give you value, that spark joy, that is useful. And the idea is, once you get rid of sort of that excess, what you're left with is it's pretty much greatness, I guess. I don't know. It's just something really great. So sticking with the analogy of clothes, imagine if you opened your closet and you looked at your clothes, and the only clothes you had were your favorite, your best clothes, your A clothes, as I call them. So not your B clothes, or your clothes that you only wear if you have no other choice, but if you only have a few items, but every single piece of clothing makes you feel like a superstar. Every single piece of clothing makes you feel good, So I really got into minimalism, and I still am. I'm not perfect or anything like that. I still have clutter around the house, but I started to really fall in love with this idea of simplicity. That's the word. Minimalism is about simplicity, taking out any excess. If something doesn't add value, just get rid of it. And I started kind of exploring with kind of minimalism in other things, in writing, in production. And, so that kind of changed my mind too. Like, okay, if I'm going to do this podcast, I want to have a pretty minimalistic approach. If I don't need a fancy musical intro, I won't keep it in there. I won't have one. But I'm not opposed to it either. If a little musical intro will add a lot of value and make me happy, I'll do it. But I just thought, what is sort of the bare bones setup to make a podcast? So that kind of minimalism, just in general, got me kind of thinking about that. And then also too, and I hate to bring this up, but the VORW show, the voice of the report of the week, review bra, as you say. And again, I hate to keep bringing this up because I've mentioned VORW in so many episodes already. So if you're listening to this and you're like, enough already with VORW, I apologize, but mentioning the VORW is actually extremely pertinent to this discussion because for those of you that are already fans of VORW or the voice of the report of the week, or the channel, the report of the week, you already know what I'm about to say in terms of minimalism, but the report of the week, all of his productions, including his VORW show, which is his I guess radio broadcast on YouTube and on shortwave as well, but a very minimalist approach, even with his video editing. He literally will turn on a camera. You'll even see him walking from the camera after turning it on. He'll sit down, he'll record a video, and he'll get up and he will turn off the camera and he will just post that video. Extremely minimalist, bare bones, and again, the old KC wasn't like that at all. I would have wanted like some cuts, a nice intro, some editing, some transitions, a very polished look, but the report of the week's videos has its own polished look, actually. Polished doesn't have to mean heavily edited, but just his videos, if you think about it, is actually more clean and polished than a heavily edited videos. We're talking the most basic, essential production value, It doesn't get any more clean and simple and polished than turning on a camera, recording your video, turning off the camera, and posting that. Doesn't get any more polished than that. And same with this podcast too. So I kind of wanted to, let me finish my thought first. To go back, when I saw those videos, I was so impressed, and it kind of opened up my eyes where I thought, this is kind of minimalism realized in production form. Like, I'm practicing minimalism kind of in my life, or at least trying to, but this is minimalism being practiced when it comes to production. And it's great, just the bare bones of it. And even his radio show, his podcast, is not edited heavily either. He may have a few segments that he sort of pieces together, but other than that, his style is pretty much turn on a recorder, record the show, post that show. So those are the two things that really influenced my decision of how to do a podcast, of what kind of podcasts I wanted to produce and what the setup would be like. So that really was the difference. So prior to years ago, when I did want to make a podcast, I was thinking about, okay, what kind of music am I going to have as the intro? What kind of segments am I going to have? What kind of cool transitions can I make? And I was also thinking of, okay, so I guess maybe I'll record the intro on one day, record this on the other day. Maybe I'll edit in some interviews, some musical interludes, just have this really heavily edited program. But ever since just listening to the VORW, not the shortwave version, because actually now that I'm thinking about it, that is edited with music, but VORW, the YouTube radio version, and my kind of falling in love with minimalism really did change my perspective. And it changed it from, okay, let me make a podcast that's heavily edited and that has all the bells and whistles, to let me see if I could do a minimalist podcast. Let me see if I could set up my podcast a way that less is more. Let me see if I could set up a podcast in a way that it literally is just me talking and I'm going to post that. And that's basically was the inspiration. So when I was thinking about my podcast setup, that's what I wanted to do. So that's kind of sort of the abstract kind of reasoning that went into how I do my podcast. And so let me just talk about a little bit about the pros of that. Is not only am I going to be left with kind of this clean, simple, less is more, simplistic, minimalist podcast, but probably what the main thing too is it's going to motivate me a lot more to do a podcast that is simpler than a podcast that is more complicated. Meaning, if it's easier to do, I'll probably stick with it more and be more likely to do a podcast if I know that the process and the setup is simple. So let me give you an example. If recording a podcast meant I would have to set up a mic, and I would have to get my editing program, that I would have to do a lot of preparation, that I would have to record like 5 or 6 segments, I would have to do a lot of editing, knowing all that, like hours of work, I would be like less motivated, like say, because we can get lazy sometimes. If I don't feel like doing the work, I might just say, oh, I really want to record a podcast, but then I'll think about all those steps and I'll be like, I don't want to do it anymore. But because my setup is so simple, if I want to record a podcast, I just think, oh, okay, well, there's not too, it's a very simple podcast. There's going to be barely any editing. There's barely any editing really. So let me go ahead and record this. So I'm more motivated to record my podcast because my setup is so simple. So basically what I did is I set myself up for success by making this really simple setup. If I had a really intense, complex setup, I might be less likely to do a recording. But because my podcast, the way I've set it up is so minimalist, is so bare bones, is so simple, that's it motivates me in the sense that I'm not intimidated by it. That's another good word. I'm not intimidated to record this because of my minimalist podcast setup. So there you go. So that's kind of the abstract kind of thoughts behind my podcast setup. So again, I want to do a very intricate setup with all the bells and whistles. I discovered the report of the week. I discovered minimalism. I was inspired to pare down my podcast setup, and I was able to have a really simple setup that would be simple and would motivate me to do these podcasts because they were so simple. So having said that, let's talk about the nuts and bolts now. I mentioned I was going to do that, so let's now talk about the intricate setup of my podcast. How I actually record the podcast, what I've chosen to include, what I've chosen not to include. So basically what I really had to think in my mind was I had to sort of balance kind of value versus, I don't know what to say, value versus time. I don't know if that's a good way of putting it. Because even with this podcast, I was flirting with the idea of how much I should include and how much shouldn't I include. How many segments should I have? How many should I have an intro? Should I have music? And when I say music, I don't mean songs, but should I maybe include a little intro, a musical intro for the podcast? Should I have, since it's on YouTube, should I actually put anything on the screen? So there's that balance of value. And I really had to find that balance. And I think I found that balance now. But basically the idea was, okay, I want to set this podcast up in terms of its structure, very simple. 3 segments, that's it, max. I want to have an intro, I want to have a topic of the day, and then I want to have a segment where I can interact with my listeners and the audience. Again, very much inspired by the VORW. I've already given credit to that in a previous episode, but it's not an uncommon setup. There's lots of podcasts that are sort of set up that way, where they kind of have some banter at the beginning, then they have their topic or their guest, and then at the end they kind of read some emails or take Twitter questions, things like that. So it's a pretty common setup, but I knew I wanted to have a simple format that I can follow each and every time, and then I knew I didn't want any editing. Okay, I knew I wanted to just record the podcast, speak for half an hour, hour and a half, however long it is, and then end it and then just post that. That was sort of the vision. Again, extremely minimalistic, no editing, almost like a live, pretty much is live, just one take. Now in terms of cuts, there has been cuts in previous episodes, but if anything, they've been very small cuts just to take care of something. Silence my phone, or I had to check up on something, and then I immediately record again. So very minimalist setup. And even the very first few episodes, I'll kind of tell you how I set it up. So basically, of course, I opened up a YouTube channel. I opened up a Gmail, an email account so people can email me. But other than that, I literally said, okay, am I going to buy podcast equipment and do this? And I said, no. I literally took my cell phone and I recorded a video of me recording the episode. So I think the first couple episodes of Take a Break podcast was, believe it or not, was actually a cell phone video. It was a video of me recording, it was a recording of me that was recorded using my cell phone. I then took that cell phone, I took that movie, transferred it to my laptop, and at that time it was my PC laptop. I took out the audio only, and I think I used Movie Maker. I literally took the audio from that recording. I maybe trimmed the ending and the beginning, because sometimes there's, I don't press record and then just start talking right away. My press record, kind of take a deep breath, kind of settle in. So there's a little, kind of some white noise at the beginning. But I literally took that cell phone video, took the audio, put that to Movie Maker, trimmed the ends, trimmed the beginnings. I didn't even want to put any image on the video. I just put like a picture of like a blank screen, of a blank black screen, and that was it. That was my podcast. So simple, so minimalistic, and that was it. Now, a couple episodes down the line, I started using my MacBook, because I have access to a MacBook Pro, which I'm very blessed to have access to, and it became even more minimalistic in the sense that now I didn't even need a cell phone. I just used my MacBook. I literally opened GarageBand and I hit record, and I didn't even use a microphone. I just used the microphone that was on the laptop. I did a test. It sounded fine to me, and there you go, and that's it. And then once I was done talking, I pressed stop. I exported that file. It became an MP3. Again, after trimming the beginning and the end, I put that to iMovie, and then that's it. And away we go. And that was it. Another simple podcast setup there. So very simple, bare bones. Now, for about 5 episodes, I did sort of flirt with higher production value. I did have that mic, that Snowball microphone, which, ended up giving me problems, so I took it back. But even that, the concept was still the same. I plugged in the microphone, but I still just used GarageBand, recorded, put it to Movie Maker, and away we go. Now, I'm not using, iMovie and away we go. I'm not using the snowball mic anymore, but so right now, like literally, I'm if you can imagine me. So imagine me, Casey. I'm actually, let's see, I'm sitting on my IKEA couch. I am looking at my MacBook Pro. I'm actually staring right at GarageBand. I can see it here, and it's recording, and I'm recording on my laptop. Literally, the podcast setup was open GarageBand. I did a test recording just to see if anything's off. I did a test recording, it sounded good, and now, bam, hit record, take a deep breath, and then here we go, start recording. Extremely minimalistic. And once this recording is done, I'm going to convert it to an MP3. I'm going to go ahead and move that into iMovie. Actually, and one thing. And then I'm going to add a title card, and then that's it. Look at that setup. That's it. No external microphone, no fancy editing. Like, that's really all you need. Like, how do you record a podcast? Honestly, just record a podcast. Just use GarageBand or use the microphone on your laptop as long as it's audible. If your laptop microphone isn't good, use a cell phone like what I did. Everyone has access to a cell phone. Literally just record yourself on a cell phone, and you don't even need a fancy title card or anything. But that is one thing that did give me a lot of value. Again, talking about balance of value, I did a test where I added a title card, which, as you can see, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening right now, maybe just go on YouTube and check it out. But it'll say episode, what episode is this? 14. It'll say episode 14, Take a Break podcast. So that to me is great. That added a lot of value. I did a test and it looked great, and I said, you know what? This is simple. This literally takes 30 seconds to add. I'm going to do it. I got a lot of value from that, for it saying that versus a blank screen. And I think it helps too. It makes the channel look a little more polished. There's a thumbnail that looks good, as opposed to just a blank screen. So that to me was great. And, obviously the temptation is there sometimes that, maybe I should add some pictures. It's like, no, KC, keep it simple, keep it minimalistic. And plus, if I start doing that, it's going to become a lot of work, and then I'm not going to want to do this podcast anymore. It's going to start to feel like work. So yeah. Or like another thing too is again, I guess a little behind the scenes. I once actually experimented with having a musical intro for the Take a Break podcast, believe it or not. I did a couple of tests, and I found some royalty-free music, and I did a little test of having, it was quick, it was like a 10-15 second little musical intro for the Take a Break podcast. So I would play the music, and then the music would fade, and then I would come in and say, hello, and welcome back to the Take a Break podcast. I kind of liked it. There's a part of me that wanted to keep it, but again, I just said, you know what, I don't want to do that. And then it's going to defeat the whole purpose of my minimalist podcast setup. It was actually giving me more stress than it was joy, and I said, forget it. Once I get into that territory, it's just a slippery slope from there. So I said, you know what, let's just keep it simple. Press record, and you're good to go. That's it. So there you go. That's literally my podcast setup. It's a MacBook, GarageBand, iMovie, posted on YouTube. So there you go. That's it. That's my minimalist podcast setup. So, if you're thinking about doing a podcast or video production or just anything, really consider applying minimalism to your creative endeavors. And it might make things easier. It might make things simpler. It might mean your output would be greater. And it doesn't mean that it has to be simple and bare bones, but just minimalism means just leave doing the bare essentials. Don't add anything extra that won't add a lot of value. So, if adding a musical intro would have added value to my podcast, I would have done it. And who knows, maybe I will in the future. But right now, the work involved of putting in a musical intro for the Take a Break podcast does not give me value. At least me, So there you go. There you go. That's it. That was the topic of the day. I don't know if I have anything else. I'm just kind of looking at my notes here. But yeah, that's all I got for the topic of the day. So I hope you enjoyed that little that little lecture, I guess, as Review Bra would say. I don't know if it's a lecture in my case, but I hope you enjoyed that topic of the day. Hope you enjoyed that little discussion on minimalism and my podcast setup. I hope that gave you um, some interesting insight of my podcast setup. So there you go. So that formally ends the topic of the day. And now let's get into the community chat. We finally have a community chat. It's been a while. So welcome again. This is the Take a Break podcast, episode 14. This is the community chat where we get to interact. So if you want to become part of the community chat, all you have to do is send me an email at takeabreakpodcast@gmail.com. You can send me questions, requests, or please give me feedback on any of the topics that we discuss. Give me some feedback. What is your take on minimalism? What is your take on a very simple podcast setup? Or what's your take on any of the previous episodes that I've done? Please send me an email. The reason I'm saying email only is, again, keeping it minimalist. I eventually what I want to do is just to be able to check my email and have everything filtered through just one email. Especially, I don't know how big this channel is going to get, but depending how big the channel gets, it's going to get to a point where I won't be able to respond to every comment. I'm kind of trying to do that now, but I really don't know how big this channel is going to get. If this channel stays small and there's about 10, 20 subscribers, I think that's fine. I think I can handle that. But just in case, I'm kind of setting it up now to try to encourage everyone to use that email, but for now, I will admit, if you post a comment on the videos, because the channel is so small, you'll probably be included in the community chat. So anyways, let's get to it. Let's get to the community chat. So first of all, shout out again to SCWT89. And you are first one up on the community chat. So let me just check this out here. Okay, so SCWT89, he did a comment on my Take a Break podcast episode 2, and he writes, quote, "I'm a big fan of VORW, and I just found your podcast. It seems pretty good so far," end quote. Well, thank you very much. SCWT89. I too am a huge fan of VRW, as you know. And thanks for that. You said it's pretty good so far, so great. Thank you. Appreciate the feedback. Hope you stick around. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Feel free to check out my other episodes. And here's your official shout out. So thank you for that comment. And I know a lot of people, I think another person as well found my podcast because of the VORWs, which is great because, I love the VORW. So if anyone is a fan of the VORW, please, you're more than welcome to also join the Take a Break podcast community as well. So yeah, that's cool. We're all VORW fans, which is great. Although, again, I'm hesitant to keep bringing up VORW, because even though it kind of inspired me, I don't want to become what's the word? I'm kind of at a loss for vocabularies. I don't want to become kind of tied. I don't know if that makes sense. Attached to the VORW, I'm my own person on my own show. And I know some people will find my videos because of the VORW, because it's in the description. Whatever I talk about, I put it in the description. So not every episode, but I think I have 2 or 3 where I talk about the VORW. So it naturally, when you search for it, you might find my podcast. But I But that's great. I think that's great. So yeah, SCWT89, thank you for that comment. And next up on the community chat, we have another comment on the YouTube page, and it is again from SCWT89, and he. Sorry, I keep saying he. I apologize. I actually don't know this individual, he or she. So I apologize. I actually haven't looked at the about page of SCWT89. So I apologize. I he or she. So, but SCW9 commented, and that individual commented on the Take a Break podcast episode 4. That was the one where I talked about gift cards. Hey, and actually that's the one where I talked about sleeping in versus waking up early. So there you go. So you can go ahead and check that out. But SCWT89 wrote, quote, "Nice episode. I generally disagree with you about gift cards. The way I see it, the way I see it is if I give you a $25 gift card and you give me a $25 gift card, then what's the point? It's just a wash. We might as well have not exchanged the cards at all. I understand when it's a gift card for a service you might not otherwise use, though. They're also good for kids so they can buy games or apps online without needing a credit card." End quote. Thank you, SCWT89, for that comment. Glad you enjoyed the episode. And actually, I agree with you on that one. I never thought about that when I recorded it, but you're absolutely right. Gift card for gift card, unless you're getting value out of kind of the formality and kind of, I don't know, pageantry. I don't know if that's even an appropriate word of kind of exchanging gifts. If you kind of like just kind of that ritual, I guess, of exchanging gifts, then whatever you're exchanging is really arbitrary, then you'll get value out of that. But yes, in general, yeah, totally agree with you. If two people are exchanging gifts and you kind of know ahead of time it's just a gift card, might as well not have done it. Might as well just say, listen, you keep your money, I'll keep my money. Let's go out for a dinner. Let's hang out and watch a movie or something. But yeah, it's true. It's just a wash. If I came up to someone and said, hey, here's $50 cash, and they say, here's $50 cash, it's like, okay, we might as well not have exchanged at all. Or I guess maybe unless the gift card is somewhere unique that the other person would not have used otherwise. And yeah, just like when you mentioned, you said if it's for a gift card that you might not otherwise have used those. So, but yeah, great comment. Thank you so much. So, that's our community chat for this episode. So that was great. I had 2 comments to read. Again, as if and when this channel grows, I might not be able to include comments in the community chat. But for now, in general, I'll try to include the comments in the community chat, or at least even just do some shout outs. But for now, thank you so much, SCWT89, for those comments. For anyone that wants to become part of the community chat and share your thoughts, please send me an email, takeabreakpodcast@gmail.com. And while we're talking about the community and the interaction, I might as well mention it here too about the subscribers. I know I said I'd get back to that. So again, I'm really excited for these subscribers because I don't I don't advertise. I definitely don't have any paid advertisements. But I will admit I'm a little shy and I haven't actually reached out to the YouTube community. Maybe I will one day, but aside from responding to comments on my own videos, I haven't gone on any other videos that I enjoy and I've started commenting. I haven't reached out to any YouTube users or YouTube creators and kind of said, hey, here's who I am, check it out. I haven't done any of that. I haven't done any community building or advertising or anything like that. I know that that's a great way to get subscribers and views. I have my reasons for not reaching out yet, or if at all. Mainly because I feel like I've just started. I feel like I've just started this channel, so I want to have a lot of content, and I want to really, master my craft before I go out and put my name out there. Um, so every time I get a subscriber or a viewer, to me it's really exciting because that's with zero advertising. That's just people finding the channel organically. So um, I'm really happy about that. So to me, it's exciting to have a new subscriber, especially since I'm not reaching out and trying to get subscribers. So for me, that's great. So thank you so much. It really means a lot to me. It really motivates me too, knowing, you know what, I have to release these podcasts regularly, not just for myself, but now I have people that want to listen to me speak, that want to relax, that want to take a break, that want to get informed on a topic. So great for me. I'm very excited about that. So thank you so much. Um, and yeah, eventually I'll kind of reach out to the community, but also too, there's no rush for me to get this channel really big. Um, I know there's some people that have YouTube sort of as a career. They make money off it. Uh, what they're trying to grow their channel, because that's what they want to do. And so yeah, it's a job for them. So they have to go out and get subscribers and advertise and get their name out there. This is definitely not a career for me. As I already mentioned, I work. I have a full-time office job. I work 9 to 5. I'm good, and that's it. This is just something I'm doing on the side. I want to. It's part of my passion and I like doing it. So there's no rush for me to go out there and get my name out there. I'm thinking maybe after a year, maybe. I know that might sound kind of long, but I'm thinking maybe after a year of podcasting, um, I won't be shy and I'll have the confidence to go out there and get my name out there. So there you go. So whoever finds my channel, whoever's listening right now, to my 3 new subscribers, to my first subscriber, so to all my 4 subscribers, thank you. To SCWT89, thank you. And thanks for making the community chat. So hopefully we'll have another community chat next week. So please keep the comments coming, but preferably keep the emails coming, and we'll have a community chat next time. So that's it. I think that's all I got. I think that's all I got. So I actually have a pretty busy Saturday planned. So I'm gonna end this podcast and get the day going. But again, thank you everyone so much. Thank you for joining us, and yeah, I hope you had a good episode. Episode 14. I thought it was a good one. I hope. I'm gonna listen to it and see. But yeah, thank you so much. So again, thanks for taking a break to listen to this podcast. This is Casey saying take care and stay well.